Welcome back to Fins, Scales, and Fluffy Tails. My name is Bryn, and today I'm going to be telling you guys how to take care of an axolotl. So in this video today, I'm going to be covering tank size, filtration, substrate, hides, lighting, temperature, water changes, diet, and illnesses. And when you get an axolotl, you should definitely set up the tank before you get them, mainly because you have to cycle the tank. However, I'm not going to be going into detail on how to do that in this video because that process is so complicated that it would just make this video really, really long. So all of this that I'm talking about is going to be after your tank is cycled or as you're cycling the tank before you get your axolotl. The first thing I'm going to talk to you guys about today is tank size. Now, there are a few different tank sizes that you might need when getting your axolotl. Most people, when they buy an axolotl, they're going to get it as a baby when it's about 3 inches long. You can also buy adult axolotls, like if you want to get into breeding, you can definitely buy an axolotl that's already mature, that's already an adult. But I will say that most people get them as babies. So if you do get your axolotl as a baby, my suggestion would be to start it off with a 10-gallon tank. And this is important because you don't want to put your axolotl in something, your baby axolotl, in something that is too big. It will make it harder on you to be able to take care of them by feeding them and everything like that. So I think it will be best when it's a baby to keep it in something smaller. However, if you do start out with a 10-gallon, you're definitely going to want to upgrade as it grows. If you're getting an adult axolotl, I would say go with a 20-gallon. That is the minimum size for an adult axolotl. At 18 months, your axolotl is fully mature. Normal adult axolotls can grow anywhere from 7 to 12 inches long. So, since axolotls are a fully aquatic amphibian, which means they never, ever, ever, ever leave the water, the next thing you must have for your tank is a filter. And this is very important. This is how your water is going to stay clean and keep the water quality good. You definitely don't want your axolotl getting ammonia burns or anything like that from poor water quality, so a good filter is necessary. Axolotls are really big waste producers. So you're going to need a strong filter, but they also get really stressed out by high water flow. So if the flow of your filter, it makes your water move too much, your axolotl will probably get stressed out, and he could even get sick from being stressed. So the filter that I would suggest getting for your axolotl is a sponge filter. However, for an axolotl, you definitely need a good pump. Another thing that you're going to need if you get a sponge filter is a turkey baster that you specifically use for this tank. And that is because sponge filters are good filters, but they're not strong enough to actually get excess food and poop off the bottom of the tank. And because axolotls are huge waste producers and they're sensitive to low water quality, you're definitely going to want to help your filter out with the turkey baster by kind of suctioning all the poop and excess food after every feeding. So that's definitely what I recommend for that. However, if you really want to get a hang-on back filter, I would definitely pay the extra money and get one with an adjustable flow so that you can make the flow really low. So the next thing I'm going to talk about in your tank is substrate. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of substrates that can work with axolotls, and whether your axolotl is a baby or an adult is definitely going to curb what kind of substrate you use. So if you get your axolotl as a baby and it's under 4 inches long, you cannot use substrate if you have a baby. And this is because substrates like sand, which are fine for adult axolotls, can actually cause impaction with a baby. The way an axolotl eats is it opens its mouth really fast, which creates a vacuum and sucks all the food into its mouth. Anything that is smaller than its head can fit into its mouth. And what impaction is is sand or other blockages that get in their intestines and they can't digest them. So most likely your axolotl would die if that happened. So you definitely want to avoid that. However, if you don't want to do completely bare bottom, you could, I've heard of people using slate. So you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or something and get a piece of slate cut to fit the bottom of your tank. And this would work really well because then your axolotl would have something to grip on as it's walking along the bottom. So it wouldn't be completely bare bottom and there would be no way that your axolotl could get impaction from it. So another thing I want to mention about Substrate is never, ever, ever, ever use gravel in your tank. And that is because the gravel pieces are small enough that they could fit in your axolotl's mouth, and when they eat, they could definitely get sucked in and cause impaction. That's basically like having like rocks in your digestive system, which is bad. That would definitely cause some pain and probably death to your axolotl. So gravel is definitely a no-go. Do not use gravel in your tank. The next thing you want to provide for your axolotl, a must-have, is a hide. So axolotls do like to hide, and the main reason for that is they don't like strong lights. So because they don't like a lot of light, you definitely want to provide something for them to hide in. Now this decoration that I got in his tank is from Walmart, and I only paid like 10 bucks for it, and it fits really well in this tank. Other hides that you can use for them are PVC pipe, so you could get that at like Lowe's or Home Depot again, but make sure that it's big enough for your axolotl to fit in. Something for them to fit in, but you don't want to make sure they can't get stuck. Another thing you could also use are terracotta flower pots. You could just lay them on their side, and then they can hide in those. So you definitely want to have a hide. Now, the next thing I want to talk about in this video is lighting. Again, like I just mentioned, axolotls are really sensitive to light, and they can get really stressed out from having bright lights on them all the time. I would suggest either don't put a light on their tank at all, or if you do have a light, don't turn it on unless like you want to show him to someone or you want to show off your tank for a little bit. I wouldn't leave the light on for a prolonged period of time, like at all. But actually, axolotls don't need light. The light in your room or wherever you have them should be enough for them to at least know the night and day cycle, but they don't actually need any lights on their tank. So the next thing I'm going to talk about with you guys is water temperature. Axolotls are really different from a lot of fish and other aquatic pets that you keep because their water has to be cold. And when I say cold, I mean really cold. You should never ever let the temperature get to 75 degrees. 75 degrees Fahrenheit for prolonged periods of time could cause your axolotl to pass away. They could definitely die from being too warm, and 75 degrees is basically the cutoff point. The sweet spot for your axolotl is going to be anywhere from 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. I would definitely get some kind of cooler for your tank. The cheapest option to go for if you want to cool your tank is a fan. I have a fan on top of Pascal's tank, and it's perfect. It keeps his tank at 65 degrees all the time, so that's really good. However, if you're getting multiple axolotls, so you're getting like a bigger tank, a fan probably isn't going to work. Either that or you're gonna have to have a lot of fans. Also, another downside to having a fan is that the way fans work with cooling the water is they cause rapid evaporation, which keeps the water cold. But that means your water is evaporating out of your tank, so you have to fill it at least every week. And with Pascal's 15-gallon tank, that little fan makes 5 gallons evaporate out of his tank every week. So if you're gonna use a fan, you definitely have to stay on top of it. But fans are nice because they're not that expensive. I bought his fan for $20 on Amazon. And it was a Prime item, so I got it in like 2 days, so that was really great. But if you have a larger tank and you're keeping multiple axolotls, like let's say you have like 2 or 3 axolotls and you have like a 40 or 50 gallon tank, I'm not sure if fans are gonna work for a tank that big. So at that point, I would definitely suggest investing in a chiller. Now, chillers are a lot more expensive than fans for obvious reasons, and they just chill the water. How it works is there's like a tube or some kind of thing that goes in your tank, and the chiller pulls water through the tube and cools it in the machine and then cycles it back through your tank. So that's how your water stays cold with a chiller. However, if you want to get a chiller, chillers can cost anywhere from $150 to $300. So yeah, they are pretty pricey. But I mean, if you want to invest a lot of money and get a really nice big showcase tank for your axolotls, it's definitely worth it. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is water changes. Once you get your axolotl, you can't just put it in the tank and never do anything. My tank now is cycled, and I do a complete water change every 2 weeks. I'm gonna have a video up at some point on how to do a water change in your tank, so stay tuned for that. I'm not sure when that's gonna be, but I definitely want to put that on there on this channel because I think it's a really good thing to know how to do. So another thing that you're gonna want to think about before getting your axolotl is their diet. There's a lot of things they can eat, but you want to remember that axolotls are carnivores? Kind of carnivores. They're either carnivores or insectivores because most of the things they eat are like bugs and worms. But whatever the case, they don't eat plants. So you have to keep that in mind when feeding them. The absolute best food you can feed your axolotl is live earthworms. And for some of you that might sound really gross, but live earthworms is the best thing you can feed them. Because your axolotl can actually choke on earthworms, so you definitely want to make sure that they're not too big and they can actually swallow them. Another thing that's really good to feed your axolotl, like if you're not into feeding live food, I get it. You know, you might not want to do it. So another thing that is really great to feed your axolotl, and it's pretty much like almost as good as earthworms, is this. And this is called Repashy Grub Pie. And I buy this directly from the Repashy company, and it basically comes in a powder, so it's like in powder form inside this jar, and you add hot water and you let it set and it forms a gel food, and then you can cut it up in however small pieces you want, and then tongue feed them to your axolotl. That's another good thing to add. When you have an axolotl, get yourself a pair of feeding tongs because I think tongs, the good thing about them is they help decrease the risk of impaction, like if you have sand, and also it helps you to be able to actually make sure that your axolotl is eating the food. Another thing that's really good for your axolotl to eat is live blackworms, but you're probably going to have to order those online. I've never seen them in anything like a Petco or a PetSmart. You can also feed frozen thawed brine shrimp. Another thing that you can feed your axolotl is bloodworms. However, I wouldn't suggest using bloodworms as a staple diet. They don't have as much nutrition as earthworms or any of the other foods I mentioned, so I wouldn't suggest them as a staple diet. But as far as how often you should feed, if you have a baby axolotl, you should feed them once every day because they're growing and they need more food. Once they start to reach 4 and 5 inches long, you can start feeding them every other day. And then when they're an adult, so around between a year and 18 months old, you can start feeding them every other day to every 3 days. And one thing I wanted to mention before I end this video is illnesses in axolotls. Pascal has never been sick, knock on wood. And I don't know a ton about illnesses, but I did want to put this out there and say that the most common ailment in axolotls is fungus. They can get, I believe, internal fungus and also like external fungus. So if your axolotl has fungus, you're gonna notice it on their gills, and they'll look like wispy. Like they'll have like this white wispy stuff sticking to their gills or their body. And Pascal has never had that, so I've never had to deal with it. But one thing that I do to help keep down the fungus and the bad bacteria in the tank is adding aquarium salt. Aquarium salt is really good when you do water changes and adding water, because first off, it can help reduce stress in fish, because water changes and cleaning the tank is actually really stressful for a fish. So it reduces stress, and it can also help keep the bacteria levels down. However, I encourage everyone to do their own research on axolotl illnesses. I personally don't have a lot of experiences with it because my axolotl has never been sick. So one thing that the one person I'm remembering right now that had an axolotl that got sick and cured it, that is Taylor Nicole Dean. So if you want to go check out her video about that, you definitely can. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I will see you in my next video. Catch you on the flip side.